The moment we opened that game, everything felt wrong. Not the kind of wrong where you expect a cheap jump scare, but the kind that seeps under your skin. The loading screen glitched for a second, just long enough to make us wonder if the game was broken. The static on the menu screen dragged. The music slowed down like an old tape, and for a moment, it felt like the game itself was staring back at us. We laughed, of course, that nervous, awkward kind of laugh you do when you're trying to act brave. I remember saying, yeah, okay, this is already cursed. But inside, my stomach was twisting. Something about this game didn't feel normal. The air in the room was heavy, like someone had shut all the windows and turned off the oxygen. We hovered over start, and I swear, my hand was shaking a little. Not because I was scared, at least, that's what I told myself, but because the atmosphere was just off. Like, how do you explain a game menu making you feel watched? Background wasn't even that creepy. A mirror, a candle, and shadows stretching too far for how small the room looked. But there was this presence. You could feel it. And then click. We pressed start. The screen dipped into darkness, and the sound cut out completely. No music, no loading chime, nothing. Just silence. We looked at each other, waiting for something to pop up. But instead, the screen stayed black for way too long. I remember leaning forward, whispering, did it crash? Right then, a whisper came through the speakers, low, scratchy, a woman's voice, and it said something none of us could make out. That was the first moment my heart really jumped, because it didn't sound like the game, it sounded close, like she was whispering into a microphone that wasn't in the game, but in the room with us. Finally, the image loaded, a small, dimly lit bathroom, a cracked mirror hanging over a sink. The walls were water-stained, the candle flickered weakly, and somewhere in the distance there was the sound of dripping water. We all went quiet. It was one of those silences where everyone is thinking the same thing, but nobody wants to admit it. I tried to lighten the mood, because that's what you do when things start getting too real. I laughed and said, okay, this is where Bloody Mary shows up, right? We say her name and she, boom, jump scares us. My friends chuckled nervously, but before anyone could respond, the light in our room flickered, not on the screen, in real life, just one short buzz, like the bulb was about to die. That sound, ZZZK, snapped every single one of us into silence. We all just froze. My controller was in my hand, but I wasn't pressing anything. My chest felt tight, my palms sweaty. I wanted to say it was just a coincidence, but my brain wouldn't buy it. We kept going, because of course we did. Curiosity beats common sense every time. The character in-game took a step closer to the mirror, and that's when I noticed it, the reflection. At first, I thought it was just us in the game, our character's avatar standing there, but the shadow didn't line up. The reflection in the cracked glass moved just slightly, a fraction too slow. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't even want to point it out, because that would make it real. But then, the shadow in the mirror smiled, and none of us did. So, the game told us exactly what we were dreading. Say her name 3 times. You already know the drill. Classic Bloody Mary setup. And of course, we're sitting there, controllers in hand, pretending like we're too cool to be fazed by it. But deep down, every single one of us was hesitating. I mean, come on, think about it. You're in this pitch dark room in-game, a single candle flickering, a cracked mirror staring back at you, and the only prompt on the screen is basically begging you to make the worst mistake of your life. We all looked at each other like, so who's actually gonna do it? I laughed nervously, trying to play it off. Fine, I'll do it, I said, so I leaned in and whispered, Mary. The game responded immediately. The candle flickered harder, almost went out, and the sound of dripping water got louder. Second time, Mary. The screen glitched for a split second like a static flash, but the reflection in the mirror leaned forward closer than we had. At this point, I could literally feel my pulse in my neck. My hands were sweating so much on the controller that it slipped a little. My friends were dead quiet. You could hear someone breathing, but none of us wanted to admit it wasn't ours. I almost didn't want to say the third one, but the game wasn't moving forward without it. Mary, the candle blew out. Total blackness. Sound cut off instantly, and then the mirror cracked all the way down the middle with this sharp, echoing CRRK. We jumped so hard one of my friends actually dropped his controller. We all laughed at him for a second because humor's the only thing keeping us sane, but the laugh didn't last because that's when the audio came back, and it wasn't game audio. It was breathing, long, drawn out, right in our ears, and it wasn't coming from the TV speakers. It was coming from behind us. I swear to you, the hairs on my arms stood straight up. We all whipped our heads around at the same time, expecting to see someone standing in the corner of the room, but there was nothing, just shadows, just silence. When we looked back at the screen, the game had changed. No more cracked mirror, no candle, just a pitch black hallway stretching further than we could see. The camera slowly panned forward, even though none of us touched the controller. I remember saying, "Dude, I'm not moving it." But the character kept walking, and with every step the floor creaked like old wood. Then out of nowhere, drip, 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 that same sound but louder. The hallway walls were wet, stained dark. Like something was leaking from the ceiling, the sound grew heavier, drip, step, each one synced with my heartbeat. We froze, nobody speaking, just staring at the screen, and then there, a silhouette at the far end of the hallway, faint at first, but the more we walked, the clearer it got. It wasn't standing still, it was swaying, slowly, side to side, like someone dangling from a rope. We screamed, paused the game instantly, and just sat there, staring at each other. I could barely get the words out. Was that her? We unpaused, and the figure was gone, but something had taken its place. A single word appeared in red letters across the screen: run. The screen froze for a split second on that word, run, like the game was daring us to make the wrong move. Nobody touched the controller. Nobody even breathed. We just stared at it, waiting for something to happen, and then the sound of footsteps started echoing down the hallway, not from our character, from behind us in the game. We hesitated too long. The screen jolted forward as if the game had taken control, forcing our character to start running. The camera shook with each step, our field of view bouncing wildly, and those footsteps behind us got louder, heavier, faster. I was gripping the controller so hard my knuckles went white. My friend leaned in, muttering, "Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop." But the weirdest part, every time the character breathed in-game, we heard that same breath in our room. I swear to you, it was like the game was synced with us. My chest was heaving, and the headphones whispered the same ragged breaths in sync. The hallway stretched forever, no doors, no windows, just dripping water and endless darkness. And then, bam, the character slammed into a door, big, rusted, locked shut. On the screen, instructions flashed. Say her name. Again, we looked at each other like, nope, absolutely not. We are not doing this again. But the footsteps behind us were closing in. The screen started shaking, the sound of nails dragging across the walls filled the headphones, and I knew we had no choice. So I whispered, barely above my breath, "Mary." The door creaked, not much, just enough to make a crack of light appear. Second time. Louder this time, "Mary." The lock snapped. 1, 2, 3 bolts. And then I hesitated. My throat was dry, my voice caught. But before I could say it, the game whispered it for me. A distorted, broken version of my own voice echoed back through the speakers, "Mary." The door swung open on its own, and beyond it, a bathroom, the same cracked mirror, the same candle, lit again somehow, only this time the reflection in the mirror wasn't standing still. It was moving closer, even though our character wasn't. I leaned forward without even realizing it, completely hypnotized. Reflection raised its hand slowly, slowly, and pressed its palm against the inside of the mirror. And then our controller vibrated so violently, it nearly jumped out of our hands. The mirror shattered with a piercing shriek, and glass shards flew across the screen like they were flying at us. We all screamed and ducked instinctively, but when we looked back, our character was still staring into the broken mirror, only now there was no reflection, just darkness. A low growl rumbled through the speakers, so deep it shook the desk. My chest was pounding, my skin cold. One of my friends whispered, "Dude, this doesn't feel like a game anymore." And that's when the breathing came back, not from the speakers, not from the headphones, from right behind us. We froze, completely frozen, controllers in hand, eyes darting between each other. That breathing, it wasn't surround sound, it wasn't game audio. It was in the room with us, slow, heavy, like someone standing just inches away. None of us turned around at first. It was that primal instinct, you know, when your brain screams at you not to look, because if you see it, it becomes real. But then on the screen, words started to appear in jagged red letters, one by one, as if someone was typing them. Turn around. My stomach dropped. The timing was too perfect. It wasn't just a game mechanic anymore. It was like the game was aware. My friend whispered, "Don't do it, don't you dare." But my hands moved on their own. I rotated the character slowly, slowly, until the cracked mirror filled the screen again, and that's when we saw it. A pale face, hollow black eyes, staring back from inside the glass. Her lips twisted into a smile that felt like it was for us, not for character. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought it might burst. Then the monitor glitched hard. Static ripped across the screen. The audio screeched like nails on a chalkboard. And for half a second, just half a second, we saw her face zoomed in, filling the entire display. Her eyes rolled back white, her mouth unhinged wider than it should have been, and then, black. The room felt silent except for one thing, our controllers. They started vibrating non-stop. We weren't pressing anything, we weren't even holding them anymore. Both were lying on the desk, rattling violently against the wood like they were trying to crawl away. And then the text popped up again, one word at a time. "You shouldn't have called me." My throat went dry. I could feel every hair on my arm standing straight up. My friend whispered, "It's just the game, it's just the game." But then my actual headset crackled with static, and I heard her voice, not from the speakers, from headset sitting in my lap. "Turn around." I ripped the headset off so fast it yanked the wire loose. My heart was racing. I didn't even want to look at the screen anymore, but when I did, everything had changed again. The bathroom was gone. Our character was now standing in the middle of a bedroom. Old, decayed wallpaper peeling off, shadows stretching across the ceiling. A grandfather clock in the corner ticked, tick, tick, tick. But here's the thing, the clock in our living room started ticking too. That was the moment I knew. We weren't just playing anymore. Something in that game had crossed over. The sound design went haywire. We heard scratching on the walls, whispers overlapping each other, dozens of voices all speaking nonsense words in a language none of us understood. The lights in-game flickered, and then the lights in our room flickered right along with it. We just sat there, paralyzed, every muscle locked tight, and then the screen froze, completely. No movement, no sound, just the image of that empty room, until text appeared again, this time slower, behind you. I swear to you. We heard actual footsteps across the floorboards. The footsteps were deliberate, slow, heavy, one after another, crossing the room behind us. I wanted to tell myself it was just the neighbors upstairs, but no, these weren't muffled. These were right there in our space. I could feel the vibrations in the floor with each step. I finally forced myself to look back, and nothing, just the corner of the room, shadowed and empty. But the second I turned back to the screen, she was there, Mary. She was crouched in the far corner of the in-game bedroom, her limbs bent wrong, her head twitching like a broken puppet. Her hair hung in strands across her face, and with every twitch, her body dragged closer, leaving streaks of black across the floorboards. We screamed. I mashed the pause button, but nothing happened. The game ignored every input. Instead, the screen pulsed blood, red, and in huge letters, a timer appeared at the top. 60. It started ticking down. 59, 58, 57. I yelled, "What happens at 0?" But no one answered, because we all knew nothing good. The whispers grew louder, swirling through the speakers, echoing inside the room like they were bouncing off the walls. My chest was pounding so hard I could barely hear myself think. I tried to shut the game down, hitting every button, holding the power switch, but nothing worked. The console refused to turn off. The figure in-game kept crawling closer. The timer dropped to 30. My friend shouted, "We have to do something." The game threw up another message, "Say her name again." I shook my head. No way, we're not giving her more power. But the controller vibrated so hard it nearly jumped off the desk. The screen flickering, the whispers turning into screams. I caved. My voice cracked as I whispered at once, "Mary." The timer skipped ahead, jumping down to 20. The figure jolted forward unnaturally fast, now halfway across the room. I said it again, Mary, the timer dropped to 10. The entire room in-game went blood red, the candle flaring to life on its own. Mary was right there now, face pressed against the screen, eyes rolling back, mouth stretching into a scream that made the speakers rattle. And then the power in our actual house cut out. Pitch black. The only light left was the faint glow of the game screen, somehow still on despite the outage. The timer was at 5. We were sitting in complete darkness, our own reflections in glass mixing with hers. 4. The whispers circled us like they were right in our ears. 3. The candle in-game blew out. 2. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. 1. Her hand shot out of the cracked mirror on screen. 0. The monitor went black, and in the silence that followed, something touched my shoulder. I swear to you, in that pitch-black silence, I felt it, cold fingers brushing my shoulder. I jumped so hard, I nearly threw the controller across the room. My friends screamed. We all scrambled for the lights, fumbling around in total panic, and then just like that, the power snapped back on. The lights buzzed to life, the hum of the fridge came back, and the monitor flickered. We held our breath, waiting to see what would happen. The game, completely gone. No save data, no title screen, just a plain black screen with a single word written across it. Goodbye. We sat there in stunned silence. Nobody spoke for a long minute. You know when your body's so tense it feels like your muscles might snap. That's how it was. Finally, one of my friends just burst out laughing, hysterical. Nervous, trying to shake it off. And then we all started laughing too. Not because it was funny, but because that was the only way to convince ourselves it was over. I looked down at the controller in my hands and realized my palms were drenched in sweat. My heart was still hammering, my throat dry. I said, "Yeah, safe to say we're never opening that game at night again." Everyone nodded. Instantly, no argument there, but here's the part that keeps me up. Later that night, when I went to bed, I glanced at the mirror across the room, and for just a split second, just one heartbeat, I swear I saw her, standing there, head tilted, watching me. I blinked, and she was gone. Now, maybe it was my brain playing tricks. Maybe it was the adrenaline, but ever since that night, I don't keep mirrors uncovered when I sleep. Call me paranoid, but after what happened in that game, I'm not taking any chances. So yeah, that was the night we summoned Mary, and it went horribly, horribly wrong. If you were here with us, would you have said her name, or would you have tapped out before it got that far? Let me know in the comments, because I need to know I'm not the only one who almost had a heart attack from this. And hey, if you made it this far, you're officially braver than we were. Drop a like to help me recover from the therapy bills I'm gonna need after this. Until next time, stay safe, don't play cursed games at midnight, and for the love of everything, don't say her name 3 times in front of a mirror, because you never know who might answer.